the Panthers back-to-back years have had quarterback shots. They went with Baker this year. The Steelers are already on their second quarterback, and they're getting their asses kicked. The Colts stink. The football team, they chose Carson Wentz. Ron Rivera got into some hot water this week, and they play, by the way, Thursday Night Football against the Bears. So
that's a game.
Lock in for that. Could top the excitement of Colts Broncos from last week. These are all teams that had shots at Jimmy Garoppolo and chose not to get Jimmy Garoppolo.
Kawakami wrote a piece today. I thought it was pretty good. Just that Jimmy Garoppolo saved their season, which obviously he did, just being in that position. But part of the premise of his article was going over just because we talked about it this week. Now, Matt Rule is not collecting unemployment. So when I said send him to the unemployment line, like his unemployment, most employed people would die to be like, wait, you're going to pay me $40 million to go away. So it's not that big a deal that he got fired, and he was on the hot seat to begin with. But the reason he got fired was simply because he could not find a quarterback. And they specifically, we talked about, like, they should be all over him. They should be all over him. They should be all over him. And for whatever reason, they chose Baker Mayfield. Baker fucking Mayfield. There was well reported that he was going to get traded to the football Commanders, and then the surgery came out, and they kind of backed off, and they went with Carson Wentz, who Ron Rivera just basically took a dump on, and even Alex Smith was like, don't drive the bus over your quarterback. It's like, Jesus. I don't feel that much sympathy for Carson Wentz, but, like, it's pretty crazy how undervalued Jimmy was. Like, is Jimmy have some flaws? Hell yeah. Do, like, 18 quarterbacks in the NFL have some major flaws? For sure. And the guys that are getting fired, because Ron's going to get fired too, and Frank's probably going to get fired as well. And they traded third-round picks. Like, could you have traded a third-round pick? Like, would the Niners have given Jimmy for a third-round pick? Probably. Yes. And he was cheap. Like, ultimately, you also could have renegotiated with James Garoppolo. Like, Wentz makes big money. Matt Ryan makes huge money. And they suck. Wentz doesn't suck as much as Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan sucks. I mean, Wentz is a bizarre player. Wentz is a bizarre player. Wentz doesn't suck as much, I think, as people think if you watch him play. He throws devastating interceptions.
I think he's top 5 in the league in yards, but he's just wherever he goes, they turn on him pretty quickly.
Fast.
In Indianapolis, it turned on him quickly. I think that the lesson I learned with Jay Cutler working in this business years ago, like just out of kind of spite, I was like, everyone hates Jay. Fuck that. Like, I'm with Jay. Not that it was some big take, but multiple teams tell you they don't like Carson. I should be on Ron Rivera's side because there's a pattern here. At the same time, I thought it was kind of horseshit by Ron just to say quarterback and then act like he wasn't throwing Carson under the bus. He knows how the media works, but Ron's a high level guy. Like, I got a lot of respect for Ron. I know, people like Ron Rivera.
I think these guys, I think losing, we saw it with Devontae, makes you crack.
Well, it makes you kind of distort reality too, because he said that, quarterback like Daniel Jones, Cooper Rush, like Jalen Hurts, him and McCarthy have been in their places longer than Nick Sirianni or Brian Manscaped.com promo code Ham1Dayballs has been with the Giants. So it's not like this.
Well, the Cowboys didn't beat the Rams because of Cooper Rush, right?
No, they built the defense, but you're a defensive coach. You've had Del Rio.
I know.
So, I thought that was kind of weak, but whatever. I also have to acknowledge that there is a path of destruction wherever Carson Wentz goes.
I think the Niners got very, very lucky, and it's easy to look back. But right now, the evidence we have, Jimmy's value is astronomically higher than it was 3, 4, 5,
all
6
those
months
teams
ago.
Would trade their guy. And if you could have told Matt Rule last week, okay, you could trade Baker and you got to throw in a 4th for Jimmy. Will you do it? Could you save your job with it?
Well, here's the thing, right?
Would he have done that? Would he have done Baker at a 4th for Jimmy or Baker in a 3rd or just a 3rd?
Without hesitation.
Yeah.
The thing is, life's like this, but football specifically, is it's so easy to like something until it's in your possession or you're around it or you live in it or you're dating her or you have the job. Like, I really want this job. And then you get it and you're like, God damn, this isn't quite what I thought. Players are no different. I'm really intrigued by Baker Mayfield. And then you start coaching him. How many weeks ago did Matt Rule know I'm in major trouble? Right? This is not like, were there moments, maybe coaches, you have to kind of live in this distorted world of optimism so you don't ever say it out loud. maybe like one of your closest assistants. Clearly, those two guys that also got fired yesterday were like rule guys, and they were. I mean, they came with him from Baylor and Temple. But like, inside, you always, at least in my life, I've always known before the actual like finality of something happened, or before it's like it's not even debatable anymore. And I think that's what's happening all around the league with their quarterback positions. Is they know right now, but there's nothing you can do. Like you've made your bed, you've done the deal. Like you're in the boat with this guy, and this is where the Niners have to be thinking. One, they've acknowledged this, but it's just they are so fucking lucky that it played out this way, that the football gods threw them a bone for whatever reason. Like last night, the football gods did not throw the Raiders a bone. They tried to, but ultimately they did not. This situation. Because if the 49ers had Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld as the two backups, and Jimmy was never an option, like they're just not a playoff team. Not with these injuries mounting up by the week, right?
Yeah, I mean, you make me think. The reality is, obviously, Nick Bosa is a far better player than Jimmy Garoppolo. But as devastating as a long-term Bosa injury would be, a long-term Garoppolo injury would be more devastating for the 49ers.
Be crippling, yeah.
Especially given the way, and I know it's the Panthers, but the Panthers have some. I mean, the Panthers defense. He played well. Now, Jimmy is what Jimmy is, but watching that game back, he made some really good throws in that game. Like some really good throws.
But this is why I think everyone was so bullish on Trey, because you're like, wait, you get to inherit Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Juice, Jawan Jennings, your third wide receiver. They draft you running backs and more wide receivers. Like, Jesus. And you have Kyle calling the plays. Because you watch the game. Like, part of why Jimmy is, if you're just playing solid quarterback, you get to throw to these sweet guys. Like, Brandon Ayuk is really, really good. Like, really, really good. Like, you talk about all these teams that, like, need a number 2 wide receiver. Do you know what so many of them would do for Brandon Ayuk as their number 2 guy? Do you know what the Packers would do just to have Brandon Ayuk right now as basically their pseudo 1? Just to have that talent around that kind of group of young guys and Randall Cobb. Like, I'm watching him with the game on the line against the Giants. They have Randall Cobb, who Rodgers just throws at, the only guy. They have the dude from Nevada, and they have Lazard. Like, that's what they throw out.
Is Christian Watson hurt?
Well, he's just not like their top 3 guy. Like the Dobbs kid, Pat, is just more reliable. Yeah. But do you know what that used to be? That would have been Devontae, Randall, and Lazard. And that you kept winning them 13 games as long as Aaron Jones and like Tanyan, or they're fine. But when you have the trickle down effect, so to me, if Bosa does have to miss a couple weeks, as long as you got Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk on the field and Jimmy's playing solid, you got a chance to win games. And your defense, you still have enough defensive playmakers to make plays. Now, the thing that I would be a little worried about is the pass rush. But ultimately, Jimmy, now, how many of those games is Jimmy going to play over the next 10? It might only be 3 or 4, but as long as you win all 3 or 4 of those and then maybe split the ones where he's in the middle, you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, when do those games come, right? Like you need him to play that way against Atlanta this week because you can't lose that game. Another. Take no one lightly. I know they just handled the Panthers, but they've lost to the Bears this year. Okay, that game happened. They lost to the Broncos, who have a very good defense, but they've lost that game. So, take no one lightly.
What's the goal? If they win this weekend and they're 4-2, their next 2 games are Kansas City and the Rams, I think, before the bye.
Yeah.
Is the goal then to just be 5-3 going in the bye, and you feel pretty damn good about it?
Yeah, I think so.
You split the Rams and the Chiefs game.
Yeah, you'd feel great. Honestly, you'd feel beating the Chiefs would feel good. But beating the Rams and having a 2-game lead on them in your division,
you would rather win the Rams game than the Chiefs game, right?
It's more valuable to you, right? The Chiefs are not in your conference, so there's not going to be a 2-seed tiebreaker or a 3-seed tiebreaker with them. And
the Rams more likely going to be 3-3 or 4-3. Their record is not. It's not like you're beating them and it's like, well, they're already 7-1, so who even cares, right? Like you have a chance to like have a multiple game lead over them.
Yeah. Yeah.